like when they interact with, like how Monte and Clarice interacted.
So, what's a good understanding question that you could ask tonight? You want to ask more questions?
Understanding. Based on the book, you could ask like, how do you? An understanding question would be like, seeing how the characters interact. It would be like how Mildred and Monte interact.
How does favor affect context?
Yeah,
That's a good question. So, write that down, Aaron. I like it.
Well, no.
So that's, but it's not too difficult, right?
Yeah,
It
just
just takes,
slower.
it makes some inference. That's all. You have to infer things.
Wait, what you say?
I don't want you all to write the same question.
So we just write hot questions and black questions.
Need more space.
Something makes me want to say black.
And also specify which level it is. So apply. What does apply mean?
Apply.
To
That's
Go ahead, Aaron.
add it onto your life. How can you use this
the world.
in the real world?
Alright, so go to this slide, Aaron. What are some keywords that you would use for apply?
Choose, demonstrate, connect. I said choose, interpret, illustrate,
So, circle connect, because that's something that you guys do a lot, right? When you're reading, you make those connection arrows. So, what's a good connect question that you could ask? Deja?
How does this the world and how how is the society and their how more similar to our society?
That's a great question. That's exactly what I wrote down. So you can use your life experiences to understand the author's story, and you can also, it's like a symbiotic relationship with the book, right? So you can get things out of the book to change your life, and vice versa, or to understand your life. So some of the questions that you could use are, how can I connect this story to my life and experiences, and why might the author place the story in this setting? So you have to use your own experiences for this. But it's not like too difficult, right, to make connections? Right? Alright, so what's analyzing, Alana?
Keywords, compare, criticize, differentiate, discriminate, examine, distinguish, experiment, and question. I noticed how the author wrote the story. I can examine the literary techniques the author uses and question her purposes for using the techniques.
Right. So what literary techniques does the author use? What can we say for, what kind of question can we write for Fahrenheit 451 for this? Think about it, write it down actually. I want you all to write this one down. On the, it's a good one, so what can you ask about it? There's another post-it you can use. Another post-it, use this. So what's a good analyzing question?
Analyze how.
Oh. Use the word in it. No.
You can if you want to. And I have my own question. And then for the last two, try to read it on your own and see if you can write an evaluation question and a creation question about Fahrenheit 451.
So it's 233.
Alright, I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes.
question.
Hey. Do you know what these are?
Nope. Literary techniques. Oh man, literary. Oh.
What are some literary techniques, guys?
Figurative
Compare and
language.
contrast. Yeah, figurative language.
Figurative language. What else?
Imagery.
Imagery,
Go
dialogue. It's what the author uses.
Tone.
Characterization.
Mhm.
What? Son.
So those are literary techniques. So for analyze, you actually have to include something about literary techniques. Deja, what did you write?
I said, how does the author using figurative language affect the story?
Okay, so see how she talks about a literary technique. So
So I have to say analyze how
So
much
evaluate
how
doesn't
Mrs.
just
Bowles
talk about,
would.
like-
No, never mind. That's
think about
As
Think
such
about
like the author.
analyze the
Okay.
figurative
Mhm.
language
I
of
can
the
completely
poem.
examine
Ah.
the story and just
and how the characters react.
For what?
That would be better. So evaluate and create are a little bit more difficult.
I got it.
You got evaluate? So what does evaluate mean?
That means to like, well, it's kind of like analyze, but it's a little different
How is it
because analyze, you're just like critiquing it, saying like, what this is and what that is and stuff like that. When you evaluate it, you're using all the stuff that the author used in the story to and then you take that and you make like what's the author's argument and stuff like that.
And you're almost defending it or arguing against it, right? So do you think that the author's claim or his argument is justified? So you kind of have to include your own opinion in there. Does that make sense? So that means that you can't just go to the text and think about the text. You actually have to have your own thoughts. So you really have to know about the author and what they want to say. Guys are doing a really good job.
Is it tone or mood that affects? Well, that depends on the authors. So how the author feels, how the characters, or how the books make you feel.
So it depends. Like usually, the author's tone implies certain things about but tone also affects mood. So it's not like one.
Ports. Right.
All right. So let's talk about who has a good evaluate question that they want to share. Go ahead, Ellen.
What are some of the claims that Bradbury are trying to show? I didn't say
Is trying to show about this dystopian world, right? That's a good evaluation question. Design, what about yours?
I said based on the book's multiple themes, what does the author want readers to like remember or
So you have
Mm-mm.
so that means that you have to be an active reader to answer this question, have your own opinions. That's great. So the last level is create, and you have to be able to do all of the other things in order to write a question where you ask someone to create something, right? So some of the keywords are assemble, construct, design, develop, formulate, and write. And by write, I mean like write an actual essay or something, a story, something like that.
So like
So-
if the story were to continue, what would happen?
That would be
Question
create.
is done.
So that means that you've developed an interpretation of what the story means and a new perspective on an aspect of life because of the story. So what does that mean to you? If the first part of the second bullet It says, I have developed an interpretation of what the story means and a new perspective on an aspect of life because of the story. What does that mean? Karen?
That means this book is deep
And
it can be used to change the world, you know, make things better, like keeping books.
okay. So, and it can also change your own perspective. So, has anyone's perspective changed because we read Fahrenheit 451 about anything? Go ahead, Deja.
Well, it has, but it hasn't because I feel like books are not the only thing that gives us information. Like we have other resources, but at the same time, I don't know like books give us everything we need, and it's like if we destroy books, I need it's messing up like the author's pride, and, like what he like all the things that he has done to make this book. So.
Great. So, I just asked you a create question and you answered it, right?
Yeah.
So that's really excellent. So I also agree. Like I didn't really think too much about like books being people, but now I have a new perspective. All right. So I'm gonna skip writing that question actually because we need to get going. Actually, before we continue, I'm gonna just ask a few questions, and you guys are gonna basically shout out if it's a level 1, which is remember, level 2, which is understand, level 3, apply, level 4, analyze, level 5. Evaluate level 6. Does that make sense? Alright, so I'm going to ask you, why does Bradbury use figurative language to explore themes of nature and technology? Just shout it out.
Understanding. No, wait. Repeat the question.
Why does Ray Bradbury use figurative language to explore the themes of nature and technology?
Evaluate. Is that it? What's your analyzing?
I think it's analyzing. I would argue it's analyzing. Why would I argue that? I'm asking about how he uses literary technique, okay? How does Montag feel about Mildred? How does Mildred feel about Montag?
That's one. That's two. Understanding.
Understanding. You have to do some interpretation, right? Inferring. In book 3, whom did Montag meet outside the city?
Remember.
And that's wrong.
He's a book.
How did Montag kill Captain Babe?
That's remember.
Remember. Good job. Okay. How do Mrs. Phelps and Mrs. Bowles feel when Montag unplugs the main switch?
Analyzing. You got to stand on because I just wrote that question. How do Mildred's friends
Oh, it's understanding.
the
pose.
But you
That is understanding.
that's understanding though. But I said you have to ask about the figurative language aspect of it, right? That would make if I included something about how does Ray Bradbury use figurative language in order to describe how these women felt. That would be an analyzed question. Okay. How is a way people interact in guys' society similar to the way people interact in our society?
Applying.
Number 3. Alright. Why does Ray Bradbury make allusions to various pieces of literature throughout the book?
That is analyzing.
Analyzing literary techniques, right?
I think I did say it.
Alright. And
Responsing creative.
6 create.
why did Ray Bradbury write a dystopian novel with an emphasis on books?
That's evaluating.
I just got it right. I'm this smart.
And that is all I have. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we are going to read a section of Parable of the Sower together, okay? It's only going to be like 3 pages. But the really intense pages, don't cry. I mean, you can if you want to, I guess. It's pretty intense.
The dead ass.
Ew, how they gonna get him?
With the dead ass.
So we're gonna start where it says Monday, August 12th, 2024. What do you already notice about that?
It's in the future.
It's in the future, okay? So I'm gonna give everyone 5 Post-its, okay? Actually 6. And as we read, we're gonna stop at certain points, and I'm gonna say, okay, ask a level 1 question, ask a level 2 question, okay, about the section that we read, okay. And I don't need you to share them. I just want you to write them down.
Just like a diary.
It is a diary. That's a good observation. Does anyone know who Octavia Butler is, by the way?
Somebody who died in space?
No, but she writes a lot about science fiction. But this is a dystopian.
Oh wait, 2024, never mind. You know those nerve cubes?
Oh my goodness.
And the narrator's name is Lauren. Even though Lawrence?
But you said the world was in 2020. What?
I thought you said the world was in 2020.
Yes.
Alright, so let's take turns reading. Do you all feel comfortable reading out loud?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And remember, when we're reading, make some annotations. Okay, so circle words you don't know, underline anything, you know the drill. Alright, so
Sharing
who wants to start? Alright, and I'm going to just raise my hand when I want you to stop, okay?
And then when I'm going to be back.
Monday, August.
Oh, Saturday, August 3rd, 2020. Which one am I
Are you
reading?
not?
Monday,
Monday.
August.
Oh. Monday, August 12th, 2024. Mrs. Sims shot herself today, or rather, she shot herself a few days ago. And Corey and Dad found her today. Corey went a little crazy for a while afterward. Corey's sanctimonious old Mrs. Sims. She used to sit in our front room church every Sunday, large print Bible in hand, and shout out her responses. Yes, Lord. Amen. During the rest of the week, she sewed, made baskets, took care of her garden, so what she could from it, took care of preschool children, and talked about everyone who wasn't as holy as she thought she would.
Alright, so now I want everyone to write down a level 1 question on one of your post-its.
What did she shout out?
Who is Miss Sims?
Silently.
What did Miss Sims do?
So, I'm going to hold on.
Maybe you know how you choose food, bro.
Raise your sticky note when
This was the easiest question.
When I answer my question, what did she shout out at church?
So I said, how did she die?
Look like Freddie. Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's. The
This
first
no
one.
good. You put to the karaoke.
No, they need to do standing by the window. Let me say by the door. The button. Let me come in with
Alright.
that balloon.
Aaron, read the next section, please.
This was.
She was the only person I've ever known who lived alone. She had a whole big house to herself because she and the wife only son hated each other. Her son and his family today wouldn't live with him. Two different people.
And same thing.
Can you like literally read?
I did. I was
Let's keep it up.
Keep reading. Speak up on
different people frightened her in some deep, ugly, hard way. She didn't like the Su family because they were Chinese and Hispanic, and the other Chinese generation was still Buddhist. She lived a couple doors up from them, longer than I've been alive, but they were still from Saturn as far as she was concerned. Is that it? Idol ladders. She call them. If none of them were around, at least she cared enough about neighbors' regulations to do her talking about them behind their backs. She brought her peaches.
They
brought her peaches and figs, a good length of Fulton cloth last month when she was robbed.
So write your level 2 question based on what we've read so far.
Ready? Type it out.
And when you're done, pass them to
Want me to read? Alright. That robbery was Mrs. Sims' first major tragedy. 3 men climbed over the neighborhood wall, cutting through the strands of barbed wire and laser wire on top. The laser wire is terrible stuff. It's so fine and sharp that it slices into the wings or feet of birds who either don't see it or see it and try to settle on it. People, though, can always find a way over, under, or through. Everyone brought Mrs. Sims things after the robbery, in spite of the way she was. Food, clothing, money. We took it up for collections at her church. The thieves had tied her up and left her after one of them raped her. An old lady like that. They grabbed all her food, her jewelry that had once belonged to her mother, her clothes, and worst of all, her supply of cash. It turns out she kept that, all of it, in a blue plastic mixing bowl high up in her kitchen cabinet. Poor crazy old lady, she came to my father, crying and carrying on after the robbery because she couldn't buy the extra food she needed to supplement what she grew. She couldn't pay her utility bills or upcoming property taxes. She'd be thrown out of her house into the street. She would starve.
Alright, so write your level
Text to
3.
location.
Write a question for that, because remember we're doing level 3 right now, which is connecting, right?
And the place was rolling.
The question should be
When you're done, pass it over.
See Mr. Cooper.
Sausage! Nice.
I eat breakfast. See, so struggle with it right here. Sharon is kept. Yeah, eat.
What's that one song?
Alright, so y'all write your questions?
I have a question, Mr. Cooper. Clean said microwave. It's all dirty and stuff.
Ask your questions over.
Honor.
Oh.
I like tips from connection. It's the same. It's since so it's man. He was about like 50 years old, and these 2 dudes they put him like bags on and breaks and he was he was 50. Who rapes a 50-year-old? No.
Alright, so I've told you, this is a very intense story. This is not even the most intense. Alright, Alana.
What we yeah.
So, you're gonna read a pretty big section if you don't mind. So go ahead.
Come on, honey. They told her over and over that the church would never let that happen, but she didn't believe it. He talked on and on about having to be a veteran
consists of reassuring her. The funny thing is, she didn't like us either because Dad had gone and married a Mexican woman 4 years on. It just isn't that hard to say for if that's what you choose to call her. Most people just go on for it when this is alone. Corey never let her that she was offended. She and Mrs. Sims were sure to speak to one another. A little more like a hypocrisy to keep the peace. That sweet Mrs. Sims' son, his 5 kids, his worst day. Her brother and her brother's 3 kids all died in the house fire. The son's house had been in an unwalled area north and east of us, closer to the foothills. It wasn't a bad area, but it was poor Nikki. One night, someone torched the house. Maybe it was a vengeance fire set by the enemy of a family member, or maybe some crazy just that in for fun. I heard there's a new illegal drug that makes people want to set fires. Anyway, no one knows who did it to the Sims boy family. No one saw anything, and no one got out of the house. That 11 people, and no one got out. So about 3 days ago, Mrs. Sims shot herself. Dad said he'd heard from the cops that it was about 3 days ago. That would have been just 2 days before she heard about her son's death. Dad went to see her this morning because she missed church yesterday. Corey forced herself to go alone because she thought she should. I wish she didn't. To me, dead bodies are disgusting. They stink, and if they're old enough, there are maggots. But what the hell? They're dead. So they aren't suffering, and if you didn't like them when they were alive, why get so upset about them being dead? So you can't punch them back. Whatever. Corey gets upset. She jumps on me for sharing pain with the living, but she tries to share it with the dead.
Alright, stop there. Ask
You get mad because you can't punch them back.
a level 4 question here.
I'm just a birthday person. Ain't gonna punch back. So,
Oh, that's not good. Please go on that one.
Okay?
Yes.
although the better
Can I push yourself harder?
Yeah.
You're not good enough.
No, just give me like a piece of chicken. No, I didn't.
Push yourself harder.
That's a good question.
It
I
is,
don't know
but
what
you
type
need
of
to add
figurative
more.
language. How do you use like imagery?
Okay, yeah, imagery. I have a question about that too. But why? Push yourself a little bit harder.
Stop.
What's a follow-up question you can ask?
Dead bodies that
That's
that
what's
the
wrong
girl
with me.
was saying that she didn't like.
Yeah, but why would I see that? To me, dead bodies are disgusting. But like, why? How is this like? Another question would be like, how does this contribute to a dystopian society? Right?
Oh, because it's another thing.
So want to just like ask a little bit more like how the imagery helps you. So the question I asked was, how does the first person narrative, because you know this is in first person, right? Help set the scene of the story and describe the characters. So that's the literary technique I chose was first person. I see that you guys are asking questions about figurative language. That's good. And imagery. Erin, let me see yours. I'm seeing all of your questions. It's not like a secret.
Push yourself on.
How does it affect your reading experience? What do you mean by that?
Push yourself on.
How does
It help you understand what?
no, it's just your reading experience. How does it fit?
But that's so
Vague. My reading experience as I'm sitting here.
It can be deep too.
No. It has to be specific. So I like the question. I just want you to be specific about what you mean by reading experience. Like about how I understand the characters, how I understand the setting, how I understand the theme. Like what are you talking about? I'm training you to write good questions. Do you understand? Because I want to use them.
Hey, is that thing
But
still
you can't
recording?
tell people that they're your
See that
questions.
green light?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just turn my head back because I know that.
Okay, but what about the dead bodies? Why would we
Because
get
the author doesn't write them because they're like disgusting in them.
So what can you ask about? You could say, why does the author use imagery, right? You gotta analyze a little bit more. You done?
How
You
did
gotta finish this.
I just added do you enjoy it?
Erin, take your life a little bit more seriously, please.
I have a question at the bottom and then a question on the
I'm
back.
serious. You're too smart to be acting like that. Let's see.
I have a question on the back.
What do you mean
Two
acting like
questions
that?
on the front, so it's 3 questions.
Do you enjoy the story so far?
Aaron, come on.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
This is
So we'll talk
I
about
have 3 questions.
Do you have it? Jeanette?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I do.
First
Oh,
one.
Ow. Oh. You.
Come on. We talked about different elements of a story, right? Different elements of a plot. I love the first part of that question. You just have to
How?
explain what you mean by the reading experience, right? See how these questions become harder to ask once you get to the higher order questions?
It's easier to answer these.
So you guys need see when you're a good reader, you have to be asking yourself these higher order questions as well as the lower order questions. The lower order questions are for comprehension, but everything else is for really like understanding and engaging with the book. Right? So that's what good readers do. Like treat the book like it's a person. Like you're getting to know the book really well and you can ask really good questions. Let me see what you have. Are you good?
My next sentence says, how will you? I'm not done.
Okay, just go back to it. We're gonna finish. Okay, Erin? Go ahead.
Yes, okay. I began writing this about Mrs. Sims because she killed herself. That's what's upsetting. She believed like that if you kill yourself, you go to hell and burn forever. She believed in the literal acceptance of everything in the Bible. Yet when things got too much for her, she noticed the trade paying for eternal pain in the hereafter. How could she do that? Did she really believe in anything at all? Was it hypocrisy? Or maybe she just went crazy because her God was demanding too much of her. She was no job. In real life, Job. Oh yeah, Job. In real life, how many people are?
Okay. So that's the end of the passage that we're reading today. I want you to ask either a level 5 or a level 6 question based on what we read. So it doesn't have to be just from that section. It can be from the entire book. Not the entire book, the entire passage. Okay? So level 5, and right if it's level 4 or level 5 or level 6. You sure?
Yeah.
Let me check it.
Yeah.
Then write another one. Why do you do that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Because of this. stuff on purpose.
Are you just bored?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why you need to work harder.
I'm just like sitting outside.
It's just so strange.
He's strange.
Always has been.
Well, exactly. Dash the bear. If I hit my
You mean the narrator?
Oh yes, yes.
Good. I like that question. So, do I have your level 4 question though, Aaron? Or do you have?
Oh.
So, now if I ask one of you to write a level 1 question or a level 5 question, would you know what I'm talking about? Because I might give you guys like a passage beforehand to read. Can you guys take that responsibility? I can. Yes. Thanks.